The Indiana Fever just lost to the New York Liberty 83-75. And before the noise starts, before the takes start flooding in about Caitlin Clark's shooting numbers, let's establish something right now. Caitlin Clark came within reach of a triple-double tonight. 10 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. She was the engine of everything Indiana did offensively. She set up her teammates. She created opportunities. She facilitated an offense that built a 12-point second-half lead against one of the best teams in the league. And then the Fever collapsed, again. And the question that every Clark fan needs to be asking right now is not what went wrong with Clark tonight. The question is, what is this organization doing to put her in a position to succeed? Because while Caitlin Clark was producing 9 assists and 7 rebounds in New York, Lin Dunn was on a panel this week talking about weeding out players who don't fit the culture. The disasters keep coming, and they are not coming from Caitlin Clark. Let's start with what Clark actually did tonight, because the narrative that is going to spread across social media in the next few hours is going to focus on 4 of 14 from the field. It is going to focus on the shooting numbers, and that framing is deliberately misleading. Clark shot poorly tonight. That is true, but here is what else is true. She had 9 assists. She had 7 rebounds. She assisted the Fever's first 2 baskets of the game, a Kelsey Mitchell step back and a Lexi Hull reverse layup. She created the 12-point lead that Indiana built in the second half. She was doing everything a point guard is supposed to do, even when her own shots weren't falling. 4 of 14 shooting is not what lost this game. Caitlin Clark's performance is not what lost this game. And anyone telling you otherwise is not watching the same game. Now let's talk about what actually lost this game. Because the numbers tell a story that has nothing to do with Clark's shooting efficiency. The free throw disparity in this game was staggering. Stephanie White addressed it directly in the post-game press conference. The Liberty kept drawing contact and converting. Indiana could barely get to the line in live play situations. The free throw attempts Indiana did have were almost entirely from intentional fouls late in the game, not from drawing contact the way a well-coached offense should. And the Liberty outscored Indiana 29-18 in the fourth quarter. You want to know how you lose a game you were winning by 12? You let the other team get to the line over and over while your star player is sitting on the bench in foul trouble. That is how. That is the story of this game, not Caitlin Clark's shooting. And here's where it gets even more concerning, because this foul trouble situation is not random. It is not bad luck. It is a systematic problem that every team in this league has now figured out. A reporter asked Stephanie White directly about it in the post-game press conference. Clark has now picked up 4 or more fouls in 4 consecutive games. 4 straight games. And tonight, the Liberty made it explicit. Pauline Astier, who attacked Clark in pick and roll late in the game, said after the final whistle that the Liberty knew Clark had 5 fouls, so they just kept being aggressive. They kept going at her. They kept attacking her specifically because they knew she was in foul trouble. Every team in this league now has the same game plan against Indiana. Find Clark, put her in foul trouble early, force her to sit, and then attack the gaps her absence creates. This is not a Clark problem. This is a coaching and organizational problem. When opponents can predict and exploit your star player's foul situation, this consistently across 4 straight games, something is structurally wrong. And the people responsible for fixing structural problems are coaches and front office executives, not the star player. Think about what Clark is being asked to absorb right now. She is guarding more on the ball than she ever has in her career. She said it herself in the post-game availability. She is being put in more isolation defensive situations than any other point guard in this league. We already know she has guarded more isolations than anyone else in the WNBA this season. She is the primary ball handler on offense. She is being asked to do everything. And when the foul calls pile up because of the defensive workload this coaching staff puts on her, she gets benched. And the team collapses without her. And somehow the narrative becomes that Clark is the problem. It is the same cycle playing out over and over again. Clark does everything right. The team falls apart around her, and the organization that is supposed to protect her does nothing to address the root cause. Let's talk about the 12-point lead Indiana blew tonight, because that is the real coaching story from this game. The Fever led by 12 in the second half. against the New York Liberty. Without Sabrina Ionescu, who was out with a back injury, Indiana had every advantage in that building tonight. They had the lead, they had the momentum, they had Clark facilitating one of the best offensive stretches they have had all season, and Stephanie White could not protect it. The Liberty made their run. They attacked the foul situation. They kept getting to the line. And White had no answer, no tactical adjustment, no defensive scheme to counter what New York was doing. The same inability to make in-game adjustments that has haunted this team all season showed up again tonight in the biggest moment of the game. Clark gave this team everything she had. The coaching staff gave the lead away. And while all of this is happening on the court, something was happening off it this week that puts everything in a completely different light. Lin Dunn, the most powerful figure in the Indiana Fever organization, joined a coaching panel and said this: "Sometimes you have to weed it. You may have some problems with some weeds taking over your culture, and you have to plop them out and pick them out and let them go. And that's probably the toughest thing, is when you have to let a player go, or trade a player, or cut a player, because they don't fit into your culture that you've created. And it all goes back to behavior." She never said Clark's name. She never had to, because the entire conversation around this organization for weeks has been about one thing: whether Caitlin Clark fits the culture that Lin Dunn and Stephanie White have built. And now, Lin Dunn is publicly talking about weeding out players whose behavior doesn't fit. The timing is not a coincidence, because here is the pattern that has been building all season. The organization mismanages Clark's minutes, and she gets a back injury. The WNBA issues a formal warning about how they handled the injury report. White yells at Clark on the bench and benches her during a winning stretch. Portland goes on a 13-2 run. GM Amber Cox blocks Clark fans and mocks them on social media. Lin Dunn retweets articles calling Clark the toughest player in the WNBA to coach. Dan Dockage, who talks to people inside this organization and has a decade-long relationship with Lin Dunn, calls Clark a diva and a behavior problem on air. And now Lin Dunn goes on a panel and talks about trading players who don't fit the culture. Every single piece of this points in the same direction. The Indiana Fever organization is not trying to fix the problems around Caitlin Clark. They are building a case to move on from her. And tonight's game gave them another data point to use. Clark shot 4 of 14. The narrative writes itself, even though 9 assists and 7 rebounds tell a completely different story. Even though a devastating free throw disparity in the fourth quarter tells a completely different story. Even though a 12-point lead thrown away by coaching adjustments tells a completely different story. None of that will matter to the people inside that organization who are constructing the case that Clark doesn't fit their culture, that her behavior is the problem, that she is a weed in the garden that Lin Dunn needs to pull out. Caitlin Clark came within reach of a triple-double tonight against one of the best teams in the league. She built a 12-point second-half lead. She had 9 assists. She created everything. She did her job. The organization around her failed again. The foul situation that White has never found a solution for cost them the game. The inability to get Indiana's offense to the line in live situations cost them the game. And while the Fever fell apart in the fourth quarter of a game they were winning, Lin Dunn was somewhere this week sitting on a panel talking about the toughest decisions you have to make, about players who don't fit your culture, about behavior being everything. The disasters keep coming for the Indiana Fever, and they keep coming from the same place. Not from the player who is producing 9 assists and building double-digit leads. From the organization that cannot protect those leads, cannot manage her foul situation, cannot make tactical adjustments when it matters most, and cannot stop planting seeds in public about the player they are supposed to be building around. Caitlin Clark is not the disaster. Caitlin Clark is the only thing standing between this franchise and complete irrelevance. And the people running this organization are doing everything in their power to make sure that nobody remembers that when the time comes to make the toughest decision. The one that goes back to behavior. The one Lin Dunn talked about this week. What do you think? Is the Indiana Fever organization failing Caitlin Clark? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is not slowing down. We will see you in the next one.